Linda Pritchard's polished nails tap impatiently on her tablet screen as the Carter family steps into the office. Her smile stretches too wide, eyes darting to their skin tone before settling on Andre's calm face. "Oak Ridge has such character," she says, her voice syrupy. "Perfect for families like yours." Andre's wedding band taps the edge of her desk, a steady rhythm. "We'd prefer Willow Heights," he replies, tone even. Linda's laugh cracks like thin ice. "Oh, that area's very competitive," she insists, fingers tightening around her pen. "Let's focus on what's realistic." Simone's hand rests lightly on Maya's shoulder, her voice cool. "We'll decide what's realistic." The receptionist coughs, adjusting her glasses. A framed award on the wall tilts slightly, its reflection warping in the polished marble. Maya's camera clicks softly as she photographs the Oak Ridge brochures, peeling paint, barred windows. Linda's pen rolls off the desk, clattering to the floor. She doesn't bend to retrieve it. "Let's schedule a tour," Linda says, voice fraying. "Oak Ridge has, potential." Andre stands, buttoning his jacket. "We'll tour Willow Heights alone." The glass door closes behind them with a whisper. Linda's coffee steams on the desk, untouched, its warmth long gone. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Maya lingers at the edge of the cracked sidewalk, camera raised, lens focused on a row of boarded windows and sagging porches. Linda's voice floats in the background, brittle and rehearsed. "Great starter homes, right?" she says, gesturing with a brochure. Maya doesn't answer. Her jaw tightens, eyes narrowing behind the camera as she snaps a photo of a rusted mailbox barely hanging from its post. Simone stands beside her, arms folded, gaze fixed on the overgrown yard. Linda's heels click across the uneven pavement, her cheerful tone slipping. "A little work and these places shine," she insists, but her words hang awkwardly in the humid air. Andre glances at Maya, nodding once, a silent encouragement. Maya's fingers tighten on the camera, capturing the peeling paint, the weeds choking the fence, the faded numbers on the door. A neighbor across the street watches from her porch, eyes cautious, watering can paused mid-air. Maya's camera shifts, framing the woman's wary expression. The sagging porch swing behind her. "You like taking pictures?" Linda asks, voice lighter, but her smile is strained. Maya lowers the camera, meeting Linda's gaze with quiet defiance. "I like showing what's real," she replies, her words clipped, each syllable deliberate. Linda's hand flutters to her necklace, a nervous gesture. "Oak Ridge has potential," she offers again, but the conviction is gone. Maya lifts her camera, snapping a final shot of Linda's forced smile reflected in a cracked window. Simone places a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder, steadying her. As they turn to leave, Maya glances back, her eyes lingering on the chipped paint and broken steps. Linda's laughter trails after them, hollow now, echoing off empty homes. Maya's camera hangs heavy around her neck, every image a quiet record of what Linda tries to hide. The tension lingers, unspoken but unmistakable, as they walk away, the truth captured in every frame. Andre sits across from Linda at her desk, posture relaxed, but eyes unwavering. Linda shuffles a stack of property listings, her fingers moving, faster than her words. "Oak Ridge is a great fit for first-time buyers," she says, voice clipped, gaze darting from the papers to Andre's face. He doesn't flinch, doesn't look away. Instead, he lets the silence stretch, the only sound the faint hum of the office air conditioning. Simone sits beside him, hands folded neatly in her lap, her expression unreadable. Maya scrolls through photos on her camera, pointedly ignoring the conversation. Linda clears her throat, tries again. "I can show you a few places this afternoon. You'll see Oak Ridge is welcoming." Her pen hovers over the paperwork, ready to fill in details they never requested. Andre leans forward, his voice low and steady. "We're interested in Willow Heights." Linda's pen hesitates. Her smile falters. "That area's not usually available," she says, glancing at a calendar she doesn't really need. Simone's gaze sharpens, her patience thinning. "We're not asking for usual," she says, tone cool but firm. Linda's hand trembles as she reaches for a new folder, the edge catching on the corner of her desk. She forces a smile, but her eyes betray frustration. "I'll check the listings," she says, but her words are thin, lacking substance. Andre's wedding band taps the surface of the desk, a slow, deliberate rhythm. The tension builds, not from raised voices, but from the certainty in Andre's stance. Maya looks up, her camera resting in her lap. "We can wait," she says, voice calm. Linda nods, lips pressed tight, and begins to type. The office feels colder, the gap between what's offered and what's wanted stretching wider. Andre's quiet resolve fills the space, a silent refusal to be steered anywhere but where they choose. Linda led the Carters along the uneven walkway, her heels catching on loose stones as she pointed toward a house with faded siding and a porch that sagged under its own weight. "You'll feel at home here," she said, her tone sticky sweet, each word carefully chosen but hollow. The air inside the house was thick with the scent of mildew, a sharp contrast to the floral perfume that lingered around Linda. She opened the door with a flourish, as if unveiling a treasure, but the hinges groaned and the paint flaked at her. "Touch!" Simone stepped inside first, her eyes scanning the cracked tiles and the water stains that crept down the living room wall. She paused, her hand resting lightly on the banister, feeling its instability. "This isn't home," she said, her voice low but unwavering. Andre followed, arms folded, gaze steady, as he took in the broken light fixture and the warped floorboards. Maya lingered by the doorway, raising her camera to capture the peeling wallpaper and the dust motes swirling in the sunlight. Linda tried to fill the silence, her words tumbling out too quickly. "It just needs a little love. With some work. You'll see, it could be perfect." She adjusted her blazer, fingers trembling as she smoothed the lapel, her smile slipping at the edges. A neighbor across the street watched from behind a faded curtain, her eyes fixed on the Carters, her expression unreadable. Simone turned to Linda, her tone gentle but firm. "We know what we want. This isn't it." Linda's shoulders dropped, the practiced confidence draining from her posture. She looked away, unable to meet Simone's eyes, and mumbled something about other listings. The Carters stepped back onto the porch, sunlight catching on Maya's camera lens as she took one last photo. Linda remained in the doorway, her figure framed by the shadows inside the house. The Carters walked away, their footsteps steady, leaving behind the house and the empty promises it held. Linda's voice, once so assured, faded into the background, replaced by the quiet certainty of a family who refused to settle. The Carters gathered their belongings quietly, the weight of the day settling like a thick fog in the polished office. Linda stood behind her desk, her posture rigid, lips pressed into a thin line as she watched them prepare to leave. The glass door reflected their composed faces, a stark contrast to the turmoil simmering beneath the surface. Simone adjusted her coat, her eyes steady as she met Linda's gaze for a brief moment. No words exchanged, but the message was clear. Andre's hand lingered on the door handle, a silent promise of return, of resilience. Maya's camera hung heavy around her neck, each click earlier a testament to the truth they refused to ignore. Linda's heels clicked sharply on the marble floor as she approached, voice low but strained. "I hope you'll reconsider Oak Ridge," she said, the usual syrupy tone replaced by something brittle, uncertain. Simone's reply was calm, unwavering. "We know where we belong." The receptionist glanced up, her expression unreadable, fingers pausing over the keyboard. The office lights flickered briefly, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist with the tension in the room. As the Carters stepped through the glass door, the sound of it closing echoed like a final punctuation. Linda's reflection fractured in the windowpane, her image splintered and distorted. The coffee cup on her desk sat untouched, steam long gone, a silent witness to the storm she had failed to foresee. The air in the office seemed to thicken, the usual hum of activity replaced by a heavy stillness. Linda's fingers twitched, betraying the calm she tried to project. The receptionist's eyes flicked toward the door one last time, a mixture of respect and uncertainty in her gaze. Outside, the city's noise felt distant, as if the world itself paused to acknowledge the shift that had just begun. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet upheaval that had just taken place within those walls. The receptionist whispered to a colleague, voice low and filled with awe, "They're not like the others, are they?" The Carters walked away, heads held high, their footsteps steady and sure. A storm approaching, silent but unstoppable. Linda's first day on the job was a quiet storm of nerves and unspoken rules. Fresh-faced and eager, she sat across from her manager, who leaned in with a voice low and firm. "Suggest Oak Ridge first," he said, eyes sharp. "They won't question it." Linda's smile was hesitant, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She nodded, swallowing the unease that settled in her chest. Later, she met a young black couple, their hands intertwined, hope shining in their eyes. She showed them listings in Oak Ridge, her voice smooth but distant. "We have some lovely options here," she said, gesturing to the worn streets and faded signs. The couple's smiles faltered, confusion flickering as they glanced at each other. Linda's heart tightened, but she kept her tone light, practiced. Back at the office, she filed the paperwork, the weight of her actions pressing down. The manager's words echoed, a command wrapped in routine. The hesitation she felt that day hardened into a shield, a necessary armor in a world that demanded compliance. Years later, Linda's eyes no longer held that flicker of doubt. The routine was ingrained, the lines blurred between what was right and what was expected. The young realtor who once questioned now wore the mask of certainty, steering families with a practiced ease. But beneath the polished exterior, a quiet tension lingered, a reminder of the moment when choice was taken from her, and from those she was meant to serve. She glanced at the couple's hopeful faces, the weight of the unspoken rules pressing down. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed over the brochures, the glossy images a stark contrast to the reality outside. The office buzzed around her, but Linda felt isolated, caught between ambition and conscience. The manager's voice was a constant echo, a reminder that some lines were not meant to be crossed. That day marked the beginning of a path she would walk with growing certainty, even as a part of her remained unsettled. The young realtor's journey was no longer about choice. It was about survival in a system that demanded conformity. The Carters stepped into the dim hallway of an Oak Ridge home, dust swirling in the sunlight that filtered through cracked blinds. Maya trailed her fingers along the chipped paint, pausing as her hand brushed against a folded piece of paper wedged behind a loose baseboard. She knelt, curiosity piqued, and carefully unfolded it. The handwriting was hurried, the ink smudged, in places, but the message unmistakable. Simone read aloud, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "We quit your agency. You see our skin, not our dreams. We're tired of being erased." The words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered, echoing through the empty rooms. Andre's jaw set, his eyes darkening as he listened. Maya raised her camera, capturing the letter's weary script, her lens focusing on the pain etched into every line. Andre turned the letter over, searching for a name. There was none, just the signature of exhaustion and hope lost. Simone folded the letter again, pressing it to her chest. "How many more like this?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Maya snapped a photo of Simone's hands, holding the letter, her own anger simmering beneath her calm exterior. Andre stepped into the living room, gaze sweeping over the faded wallpaper and sagging couch. "This isn't just a house," he said quietly. "It's a record of what's been done here." In the corner, a neighbor's child peeked through, a broken window, watching the family with wide, uncertain eyes. The Carters exchanged a look, one of solidarity, of shared understanding. The letter was more than a farewell. It was evidence, a silent testimony to a pattern that stretched far beyond these walls. Simone tucked the letter into her purse, her movements deliberate. "We're not just buying a home," she said, voice resolute. "We're breaking a cycle." The Carters left the house, the letter now a part of their story, a catalyst for the change they refused to let slip away. Andre sat at the kitchen table, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across his determined face. His eyes moved, steadily through a string of emails, each more unsettling than the last. The subject lines were bland, but the content was anything but. "Oak Ridge for Black Families," one read. Another, "Keep Willow Heights clean." Each message, written with chilling precision, revealed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. Simone stood behind him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. A silent anchor as the truth unfolded. The blue glow flickered across her face, revealing a blend of anger and resolve. The room was heavy with quiet, broken only by the soft clicking of keys and the occasional sharp exhale. Maya hovered in the doorway, camera forgotten at her side, her eyes wide with disbelief. The emails were more than digital words. They were a blueprint for exclusion, a map of invisible boundaries drawn to keep families like theirs out of certain neighborhoods. Andre closed the laptop slowly, the screen fading to black, but the impact lingered in the room. Simone's voice broke the tension, low and unwavering. "They think they can decide where we belong." Andre nodded, his gaze steady. "Then we'll show them where we belong." Outside, the city buzzed on, oblivious. But inside this kitchen, a quiet determination took root. The emails were no longer just messages. They were evidence, a spark for action, a reason to push forward. The camera of Maya's mind captured the moment, the family united by purpose. Andre's hands hovered over the keyboard, pausing before he began to type. His words were measured and deliberate. "We will not be confined by your boundaries. Our home is where we choose it to be." Simone moved to the window, looking out at the neighborhood they dreamed of joining. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet fire. "This isn't just about houses, it's about dignity, respect, and the right to belong." Maya picked up her camera again, her focus shifting to the skyline beyond the glass. "We're not invisible," she said softly. "We're here, and we're watching." The emails remained open on the screen, a stark reminder of the obstacles ahead. But the family's resolve was stronger, their unity unbreakable. The kitchen felt charged, a silent promise hanging in the air. Andre's eyes met Simone's, a shared understanding sparking between them. The fight was just beginning, and they were ready. A battered notebook sat open on the cluttered desk of local reporter Janice Lee, its pages filled with scribbled notes and highlighted names. She flipped through them, pausing on a page where Linda Pritchard, Master of Gentle Guidance, was circled in red. Coffee stains blurred the word justice in the margin, but the message was clear. Janice's pen hovered above the page, her brow furrowed as she pieced together the pattern. She had spent weeks interviewing families, listening to stories that echoed the same theme, being shown only certain neighborhoods, always Oak Ridge, never Willow Heights. Her phone buzzed with a new message, another tip about a family steered away from their dream home. Janice jotted down the details, her handwriting growing sharper with each account. She glanced at a map pinned to the wall, dotted with colored pins marking every reported incident. The clusters told their own story, lines drawn not on paper, but in the lives of real people. Janice's editor poked his head into the office, his voice cautious. "You're really going to run with this?" She nodded, determination hardening her features. "It's not just a story, it's a pattern. People need to see it." He hesitated, then gave a short nod. "Be careful. Not everyone wants this coming out." She returned to her notes, reading over a quote from Simone Carter. "We're tired of being told where we belong." The words resonated, fueling her resolve. Janice highlighted the phrase, underlining it twice. She gathered her notes, slipped the notebook into her bag, and stood, her movements purposeful. Outside, rain tapped against the window, blurring the city lights. Janice pressed her palm to the glass, watching the water trace invisible lines down the pane. She knew the risk, but the truth was too important to bury. As she left the newsroom, her notebook tucked securely under her arm, she whispered to herself, "Redlining isn't history. It's happening now." Her steps quickened, each one a quiet act of defiance, ready to shine a light on what too many still refused to see. The Carters walked Oak Ridge's cracked sidewalks as dust settled, the EAC streetlights flickering weakly overhead. Maya trailed behind, her camera capturing the shattered glass near the curb and the rusted swing set abandoned in a weedy lot. Andre's boot nudged a discarded syringe, his jaw tightening as he scanned the empty playground. Simone's voice was barely above a whisper as she took in the boarded-up windows and graffiti-tagged walls. "No one deserves this," she murmured, her words hanging in the thick evening air. A group of kids rode past on battered bikes, their laughter sharp and brief before fading into wary glances. One boy slowed, eyeing the Carters with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Maya raised her camera, snapping a shot of his silhouette against the failing light. Linda's words from earlier echoed in Andre's mind, potential. But all he saw was neglect, a neighborhood left to fend for itself. Simone paused at a lamppost, its bulb flickering, casting more shadow than light. She reached out, fingers brushing the cold metal, and looked back at Andre. "They don't fix anything here," she said, her voice tight with frustration. Andre nodded, silent, his anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. A stray dog darted across the street, disappearing into a yard overgrown with weeds. Maya's camera followed its path, her lens focusing on the details others chose to overlook: the broken steps, the empty bus stop, the faded playground mural peeling away from the wall. As they turned the corner, a police cruiser rolled by, windows up, the officers inside not bothering to slow down. Simone watched it go, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. "They want us to believe this is all we deserve," she said, her words steady but edged with pain. The family pressed on, each step a quiet act of resistance. The rage was there, unspoken but unmistakable, burning in the spaces between their words, in the way they refused to turn away from what others ignored. Oak Ridge's wounds were visible, and so was their resolve to heal them. The elderly black woman stood on her porch, hands steady but eyes wary as the Carters approached. Her garden was sparse, yet every plant was tended with care, a quiet act of resistance against the neglect surrounding her. She paused, watering the can in hand, and spoke softly to Simone, her voice carrying the weight of years spent watching families come and go. "They always send us here," she said, gaze drifting to the cracked sidewalk and faded street signs, "like we're meant to be forgotten." Simone nodded, her expression somber but resolute. The woman's words echoed the unspoken truth the Carters had felt since their first meeting with Linda. A pattern, a cycle of exclusion disguised as helpfulness. Nearby, Maya raised her camera, capturing the woman's weathered hands and the determined set of her jaw. The lens lingered on the peeling paint of the porch, the chipped steps, the quiet resilience etched into every detail. Andre stood silently, his eyes sweeping the street, noting the boarded-up windows and the absence of children's laughter. The neighborhood was a canvas of neglect, but also of stories waiting to be rewritten. The woman's gaze softened as she looked at the Carters, a flicker of hope breaking through years of resignation. "Maybe this time," she whispered, "we'll be more than just the ones they send away." Simone reached out, clasping the woman's hand firmly. "We're here to stay," she said, voice steady, carrying the promise of change. The camera pulled back, framing the trio against the backdrop of Oak Ridge's worn streets, a moment of connection, a quiet rebellion against the forces that sought to keep them apart. The air was thick with unspoken resolve, the beginning of a new chapter, written not in words, but in shared strength and determination. The woman glanced down at a small, faded photograph tucked into the porch railing. A family long gone, but never forgotten. She smiled faintly, a silent vow passing between her and the Carters. Andre exhaled slowly, the weight of history pressing down but not breaking him. Maya lowered her camera, eyes bright with quiet fire. Simone's grip tightened, a steady anchor in the shifting tides. Together they turned toward the street, their footsteps light but purposeful, each step a quiet defiance of the past. Oak Ridge was no longer just a place they were sent to. It was the home they would claim. Andre spread the worn maps across the dining table, the edges curling with age and use. Each red pin marked a family, a story, a struggle. The cluster in Oak Ridge was unmistakable. Tight knots of exclusion, denied, loans and whispered warnings. His finger traced the lines connecting the pins, silent but resolute. Simone stood nearby, her eyes scanning the maps with a mix of sorrow and determination. The patterns told a story no one wanted to admit, a web of lies spun by those who claimed to serve the community but only deepened its divides. The chipped paint on the table mirrored the fractures in the neighborhoods they sought to join. Maya's camera rested on the edge of the table, forgotten for a moment as she absorbed the weight of the evidence. Her gaze lifted to Andre, a silent question passing between them. The room was heavy with unspoken resolve, the quiet hum of the city outside a distant reminder of the fight ahead. Andre's voice broke the stillness, low and steady. They think these lines can hold us back, but we'll redraw the map. Simone nodded, her hand brushing a faded photograph pinned beneath the maps, a family long displaced, their story erased, but not forgotten. This isn't just about property, she said softly. It's about reclaiming our place. The afternoon light shifted, casting long shadows across the table, the pins glinting like beacons of hope. The Carters gathered their strength, ready to challenge the invisible barriers that had kept them out for too long. The camera would later capture this moment, the quiet before the storm, the calm before the change. The web of lies was exposed, and the fight for justice had only just begun. Maya sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor. Photos spread around her like puzzle pieces. Each image told a story. The boarded windows of Oak Ridge, the manicured lawns of Willow Heights, the faces of families caught between hope and resignation. Her fingers moved quickly, arranging the prints into pairs. Decay beside comfort, neglect beside abundance. She uploaded the images to her laptop, her heart pounding as she crafted her post. "What we're shown, what we're denied," she typed, the words sharp and clear. The side-by-side photos spoke louder than any caption could. She hesitated before hitting share, her reflection flickering on the screen. Then she clicked, sending her truth into the world. Within minutes, notifications flooded in. Comments from strangers. "This happened to us, too. Thank you for showing the truth. We see you," popped up faster than she could read. Them. The hashtag "Direct Steered Here" began to trend, a digital chorus rising in solidarity. Maya's hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of being seen. Downstairs, Simone and Andre watched as the story spread. Andre's eyes shone with pride, while Simone wiped away a tear. "She's showing them what we've lived," Simone whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Maya joined them, laptop in hand, her face a mix of relief and determination. Neighbors sent messages of support, some sharing their own stories, others offering to help. Local reporters reached out, asking for interviews. Maya's photos became more than art. They were evidence, a rallying cry, a mirror held up to a system that thrived on shadows. That night, Maya stood at her window, looking out over the city. Her camera hung at her side, but her work was far from finished. She knew the fight was bigger than one family, one neighborhood, or one post. But for the first time, she felt the power of her own voice and the possibility of change. The office was dark, except for the glow of a laptop screen. An agency intern sat alone, fingers hovering hesitantly over the keyboard, the weight of what she was about to do pressed down on her chest, a mix of fear and resolve tightening her throat. Her eyes flicked to the email thread on the screen. Linda's. Messages, cold and calculated, revealing a pattern of steering families away from their chosen neighborhoods. The cursor blinked, waiting for her decision. She drew a deep breath, then pressed the button. The send icon flashed, releasing the damning evidence into the world. The screen confirmed. Message delivered. Her face, illuminated by the monitor, was a mask of grim determination, the lines of worry and hope etched deep. Outside, the city slept unaware, but inside this quiet room, a spark had been lit. The intern's hands trembled slightly as she closed the laptop, the silence around her thick with the knowledge that nothing would be the same. In the next room, a janitor paused, hearing the faint click. He glanced toward the door, a knowing look passing between him and a security guard. The small act of courage rippled outward, setting in motion a chain of events that would challenge the old order. The intern whispered to herself, barely audible, "This is for the truth." The camera lingers on the darkened office. The glow of the laptop fading as the first light of dawn begins to creep through the blinds. The fight for justice had found a new ally, quiet but unyielding. The dim light of the cafe casts long shadows over the worn wooden table where Andre and Mr. Bryant sit, hands clasped over coffee-stained contracts. The air hums with quiet determination, the weight of generations pressing down on every word spoken. "Let's rebuild," Andre says, voice steady but filled with unspoken history. Mr. Bryant nods, his eyes reflecting a mix of pride and resolve. Around them, the murmur of other patrons fades, the moment crystallizing into a silent pact. Simone joins them, her presence grounding, her gaze sweeping the room with cautious hope. Maya's camera rests beside her, a silent witness to the quiet rebellion unfolding. The papers before them are more than legal documents. They are a declaration, a refusal to be confined by invisible lines drawn long ago. Outside, the streets of Oak Ridge bear the scars of neglect, but within this small cafe, a new chapter begins. The family's resolve is palpable, their unity a shield against the forces that sought to keep them out. Andre's fingers trace the edges of the contracts, a slow, deliberate gesture. "This is more than property," he says softly. "It's reclaiming our place." Mr. Bryant smiles, a rare warmth breaking through years of guarded professionalism. And it's just the start. The camera would later capture this moment, the quiet before the storm, the calm before the change. The fight for justice is no longer whispered in shadows but spoken aloud, one signature at a time. The Carters lean back, the weight of the moment settling in. Simone exhales slowly, her eyes meeting Andre's with a quiet fire. Maya lifts her camera, capturing the scene, the faces, the hope. Outside, the city hums on, unaware of the quiet revolution brewing within these walls. The contracts lie signed, a promise etched in ink and determination. The room is filled with a heavy pause, the kind that speaks louder than words. Andre's hand rests on the table, fingers tapping a slow rhythm, a metronome of resolve. Simone's gaze sweeps the room, taking in the faces of those who have waited too long. Maya's camera clicks softly, capturing the moment for those who will come after. The roar of the bulldozer shatters the quiet morning as it tears into the shell of a forgotten Oak Ridge house. Dust swirls in the sunlight, rising around a group of children who watch from their bikes, their laughter ringing out, sharp and bright against the backdrop of broken windows and sagging roofs. Simone stands near the curb, handing a paintbrush to a neighbor. Their hands meet, a silent agreement passing between them, a pact to bring something new to the ground long left behind. The scent of fresh paint drifts through the air, mixing with the smell of earth and old wood. Andre surveys the scene, his gaze steady, a faint smile breaking through the weight of years spent hoping for this day. Neighbors gather in small groups, sharing stories and plans, their voices low but filled with determination. Maya moves through the crowd, camera in hand, capturing every detail, the flaking paint being covered, the hands working side by side, the faces lit by hope and effort. A van from Linda's agency rolls slowly down the street, windows up, the driver's expression hidden. Inside the house, the walls echo with the memory of neglect, but outside, hope takes root. Simone wipes sweat from her brow, her eyes meeting Andre's across the yard, both of them feeling the shift in the air. The bulldozer pauses, engine idling, its work not just of tearing down, but making space for something better. As the sun climbs higher, shadows stretch across the sidewalks, tracing the outlines of a neighborhood waking up. The community breathes, life into the streets. Each brushstroke and nail hammered a quiet act of defiance against the past. Children's laughter mixes with the sound of hammers and saws, a new rhythm for Oak Ridge. Simone steps back, paint splattered and tired, but her pride is unmistakable. The Carters and their neighbors stand together, seeing not just what was, but what can be. A new chapter opens, written by many hands, in the bright light of day. The television screen flickers to life, the Chiron bold and clear. Family revives dead neighborhood. Linda sits at her desk, the glow of the monitor casting fractured reflections across her face. Her eyes, once sharp and commanding, now hold a distant, hollow look as she scrolls through the news story, highlighting the Carters' triumph. Outside, the agency, the city, hums with a new rhythm. The Carters stand proudly at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of a freshly renovated community center. Cameras flash, capturing Maya's proud smile as she holds her camera, documenting the moment that marks a turning point for Oak Ridge. Linda's reflection fractures in the monitor's glass, mirroring the collapse of her influence. The agency. Van drives slowly past the bustling block. Windows rolled up, the driver's face unreadable. The neighborhood buzzes with renewed energy. Children play in the streets, neighbors greet one another, and new businesses open their doors. Inside the community center, Simone addresses a gathering of residents, her voice steady and warm. "This is just the beginning," she says, eyes shining with hope. Andre stands beside her, his calm presence a pillar of strength. Maya captures the scene, her lens focused on faces filled with pride and possibility. The camera pans to Linda, who watches from her office window, the weight of her past decisions settling heavily. The news Chiron continues to scroll, a testament to the power of quiet resilience and the promise of change. The scene closes on the Carters' block, alive and vibrant, a living rebuke to the neglect and exclusion that once defined it. The fight for justice has moved from whispered defiance to undeniable reality. The sun sets slowly over Oak Ridge, casting long shadows that stretch across the freshly painted walls and blooming gardens. Children's laughter echoes through the streets, a melody of hope replacing years of silence. Neighbors gather on porches, sharing stories and plans for the future, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of street lamps. Maya lowers her camera, her eyes reflecting the pride and determination that have carried her family through the struggle. The council chamber is packed, every seat filled, but the atmosphere is thick with a tension that hushes even the smallest whisper. Andre rises from his seat, straightening his jacket with a steady hand. He walks the aisle toward the podium, each step measured, the sound of his shoes echoing off faded oak desks and worn tile. Linda sits in the back row, posture rigid, knuckles whitening as she grips a plastic water bottle. Her gaze flickers between Andre and the council members, her jaw clenched, lips pressed tight. The council president taps the gavel, the sharp crack slicing through the stillness. All eyes shift to Andre, who stands tall, his presence commanding without a word. The flickering projector casts shifting light across the faces in the room, illuminating decades of portraits on the walls. Faces of those who once decided who belonged and who did not. Andre's voice, when it comes, is calm but weighted. "We stand here not just for ourselves, but for every family who was told, quietly or loudly, where they could and could not live." His words hang in the air, the weight of history pressing down on the chamber. Linda's breathing quickens. She glances at her manager, who avoids her eyes, fiddling with a pen that clicks nervously in his hand. A council member leans forward, elbows on the desk, eyes narrowed in thought. The room holds its collective breath. Simone sits in the front row, Maya beside her, camera resting in her lap. Simone's hand finds Maya's, a silent show of unity. The crowd is silent. The only sound is the faint hum of the projector and the distant traffic outside. Andre continues, his voice unwavering. "We are not here for charity. We are here for justice." His words cut through the quiet, each syllable deliberate, each pause heavy with meaning. Linda shifts in her seat, the bottle wrinkling under her grip. The council president nods for Andre to continue, the gavel resting lightly in his hand, ready to mark the next moment of truth. The projector flickers to life, casting a harsh light on the stained walls of the council chamber. The screen fills with Linda's emails, each line a damning confession. Oak Ridge for Black families. Keep Willow Heights clean. The room reacts, a collective intake of breath, a shift in posture. Linda's face pales, her eyes darting to the polished wood of the desk, avoiding the accusing gaze of the council. A juror's fist clenches, nails digging into the palm, a silent testament to years of frustration. The camera lingers on Linda's trembling hands, the chipped polish a stark contrast to the cold precision of her words. She swallows hard, the weight of exposure pressing down. The council president's voice cuts through the tension, calm but firm. "Ms. Pritchard, can you explain these emails?" Linda's lips part, but no words come. The pause stretches, heavy and suffocating. Andre stands tall, his voice steady but filled with quiet power. "These emails are not just words. They are the blueprint of exclusion, the map of a system designed to divide and dismiss." Simone's eyes meet Maya's, a shared resolve passing between them. The room holds its breath, the old guard's grip slipping as the truth unfolds. Linda's manager shifts uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact, his pen tapping nervously on the desk. The projector's light flickers, casting long shadows that seem to swallow the room's remaining illusions. The screen fades to black, the echo of the emails lingering like a ghost. The chamber remains still, the weight of decades pressing down, the moment marking a turning point in a long-fought battle. The council chamber fell into a heavy stillness as a council member slid Linda's emails across the polished oak desk. The papers landed with a soft thud, breaking the fragile quiet. Linda's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes flickered with panic, searching for an escape in the sea of stern faces. I thought it was standard practice," she stammered, voice barely above a whisper. The microphone caught every falter, amplifying her uncertainty. The room's tension thickened, the weight of decades pressing down on her shoulders. Andre sat motionless, his calm presence a stark contrast to Linda's unraveling. Simone's fingers tightened around Maya's hand, their silent support a quiet fortress. The council member's gaze was cold, unwavering. "Explain this," he said, voice low but firm, the demand hanging in the air like a verdict. Linda's breath hitched, mascara smudging, as she blinked rapidly. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching the edge of the desk for balance. The room held its breath, the old guard's grip slipping with every passing second. A junior council aide shifted nervously, glancing at Linda with a mix of sympathy and doubt. The flickering projector cast long shadows, the light dancing across the faces of those who had long awaited this reckoning. Andre's voice finally broke the silence, steady and resolute. "This isn't about procedure. It's about a system built on exclusion, on deciding who belongs and who doesn't." The council chamber remained hushed, the echoes of Linda's silence louder than any defense. The moment marked a turning point, the slow collapse of a legacy built on quiet injustice. The gavel rested heavy in the council president's hand, poised to mark the next chapter in a story long overdue for change. The council chamber was thick, with tension as a rival realtor rose, her voice cutting through the heavy air. "You built your career on exclusion," she said, eyes locked on Linda. The words landed like a hammer, echoing in the silent room. Linda's manager sank into his chair, his tie loosened and askew, a visible sign of the unraveling control. Linda's hands trembled, fingers nervously twisting the edge of her sleeve. Her polished nails, once symbols of confidence, now betrayed her inner turmoil. The rival's gaze was icy, unwavering. For years you decided who belonged and who didn't. You shaped neighborhoods with your biases, not with fairness. Linda's lips parted, but no words came. Her mascara smudged as she blinked rapidly, the weight of exposure pressing down. The room seemed to hold its breath, the old guard's grip slipping with every passing second. A junior council aide shifted, uneasily, glancing at Linda with a mix of sympathy and doubt. The flickering projector cast long shadows, the light dancing across faces that had waited for this reckoning. Simone's eyes met Maya's, a silent exchange of strength and hope. Andre sat tall, his calm presence a stark contrast to the crumbling facade before him. The rival realtor's final words hung in the air. Your legacy is built on walls, but we're here to tear them down. The chamber remained hushed, the echoes of truth louder than any defense. Linda's empire was cracking, the quiet collapse of power unfolding in every small gesture. The gavel rested heavy in the council president's hand, poised to mark the next chapter in a story long overdue for change. The tension in the council chamber thickened as the rival realtor's words faded. Simone rose from her seat, her movements deliberate, and approached Linda, who sat frozen, shoulders hunched and eyes downcast. Simone leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, yet every word cut through the heavy air. "You never asked what we wanted," she said, her tone gentle but edged with years of restraint and disappointment. Linda's breath caught, her hands tightening around the edge of the desk. She blinked rapidly, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. The council's clock ticked, each second amplifying the weight of the moment. Simone's words lingered, a quiet indictment that needed no amplification. Around them, the room remained utterly still, every pair of eyes fixed on the exchange. Andre watched, his face calm but his jaw set, pride and pain mingling in his gaze. Maya's grip on her camera tightened, capturing the rawness of her mother's courage. A council member shifted in his chair, the sound loud in the otherwise silent room, his expression softening as he looked at Simone. Linda's lips parted, but she found no reply. The years of assumptions, of decisions made without listening, pressed in on her all at once. She glanced at Simone, searching for forgiveness, but found only the steady resolve of a woman who had waited too long to be heard. Simone stepped back, her message delivered, her dignity intact. The quiet in the chamber was now filled with a new energy, a collective realization that justice sometimes arrives not with shouts, but with the soft certainty of truth, finally spoken aloud. Linda's world, once so carefully constructed, trembled at its foundation. The council president glanced at the gavel, sensing the shift, knowing the story was changing. Simone returned to her seat, her head held high, the room forever altered by her words. The council chamber is heavy with anticipation as the vote is called. Hands rise, one after another, each gesture a quiet declaration that the old rules no longer hold. The former power brokers sit in stunned silence, faces pale, the weight of decades of exclusion pressing down on their shoulders. Andre nods once, his expression calm but resolute. Simone wipes a tear from her cheek, her fingers trembling, as she clasps Maya's hand. The room seems to hold its breath, the air thick with the gravity of the moment. Every eye is on the council, every heart waiting for the verdict. A council member's voice finally breaks the quiet, announcing the unanimous approval of the Carter's redevelopment plan. The words are soft but carry like a wave, washing over the chamber and breaking years of unspoken barriers. The sound is a release, a gentle but powerful shift. Linda's chair scrapes sharply as she rises, her heels clicking a retreating rhythm down the aisle. Her shoulders slump, the fight draining from her posture. The receptionist exchanges a glance with a junior aide, both sensing the change that has swept through the room. The crowd erupts, not in shouts, but in a swelling, dignified ovation. Maya hugs her parents tightly, her camera capturing the faces of hope, pride, and the promise of a new beginning. An elderly black man whispers to his neighbor, cane tapping the floor in time with the applause. About time. The words linger, a testament to patience and perseverance. The chamber's heavy oak doors close softly behind Linda, the sound a punctuation mark on an era ending. Outside, the city's hum resumes. But inside, a new story is being written, one of dignity, justice, and quiet revolution. The council chamber erupted in a wave of applause, a standing ovation that filled every corner and echoed off the old wood and marble. Maya hugged her parents tightly, her camera raised just enough to capture the faces around them, hopeful, proud, and forever changed by the moment. The sound wasn't deafening, but it was powerful, a collective acknowledgement of years of struggle, finally answered with justice. Linda's agency team slipped quietly out a side door, heads bowed, their presence shrinking with every step. The weight of the moment pressed on them, the old guard's grip loosening with every clap and every tear. An elderly black man leaned on his cane, whispering to his neighbor, "About time." His words, barely audible, carried the weight of generations, a quiet victory born of patience and perseverance. The chamber's heavy oak doors closed softly behind Linda, the sound a punctuation mark on an era ending. Outside, the city's hum resumed, but inside, a new story was being written, one of dignity, justice, and quiet revolution. The crowd's energy was a tide, lifting the Carters and everyone who had stood with them through the long fight. Simone's eyes glistened as she looked at Andre, their silent exchange speaking volumes. Maya, her hands trembling, captured the moment that would be remembered, not just for the vote, but for the spirit it embodied. The standing ovation was more than applause. It was a roar of hope, a promise that change, though slow, was unstoppable. The Carters stood at the center, calm but radiant, transformed by resilience and the power of quiet strength. The old order had crumbled, and a new chapter was beginning, written by those who refused to be overlooked or silenced. Linda pushed open the restroom door, her steps unsteady, the echo of applause still ringing in her ears. Inside, the harsh fluorescent lights flickered, painting her reflection in fractured lines across the cracked mirror above the sink. She stared at her own face, searching for the confidence that had once come so easily. Now her eyes looked hollow, mascara smudged beneath them, the edges of her mouth pulled tight with exhaustion and regret. She turned on the faucet, letting cold water run over her shaking hands. The sensation grounded her for a moment, but nothing could wash away the sting of what had just unfolded. The sounds from the council chamber, cheers, laughter, the hum of celebration, filtered in through the thin walls, each one a reminder of her unraveling authority. She pressed a damp paper towel to her cheeks, hoping to erase the evidence of her collapse, but the marks remained. A memory flickered. Her first day at the agency, the pride she'd felt, the certainty that she could shape futures. Now that certainty had splintered, replaced by a gnawing doubt that crept into every thought. She remembered the faces of families she'd guided away from their dreams, the polite words she'd used to mask decisions made for them, not with them. Each recollection was a shard of glass, cutting deeper with every passing second. A soft knock at the door startled her. A junior staff member's voice, tentative and kind, asked if she was all right. Linda managed a nod, but her voice caught in her throat. "I just need a minute," she whispered, barely audible. The staffer lingered, uncertain, then left her alone with her fractured reflection. She looked up one last time, meeting her own gaze in the mirror. The woman staring back was changed, stripped of pretense, forced to confront the consequences of choices made in comfort and ignorance. Outside, the Carters' laughter drifted down the hallway, a gentle but undeniable sign that the world was moving on. Linda lingered in the quiet, the truth settling in. Some legacies are rewritten not with grand gestures, but with the quiet collapse of what once seemed unbreakable. Linda stepped out into the bright afternoon, the council building's heavy doors, closing behind her with a final, hollow thud. The parking lot was alive with the commotion of news vans, reporters jostling for position, cameras already rolling. The sudden glare of lights caught her off guard, forcing her to squint as microphones were thrust in her direction. "Do you have any regrets, Ms. Pritchard?" a reporter called out, voice sharp and insistent. Linda hesitated, her lips parting, but no answer came. The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the crowd pressed closer. Behind her, the Carters stood in front of a new billboard, bold letters reading Oak Ridge Rising, above a photo of families smiling in front of freshly painted homes. The contrast was stark. Linda's shadow stretched long across the pavement, swallowed by the brightness of the sign and the hope it represented. The camera zoomed in on her face, catching every flicker of discomfort, every trace of the collapse that had played out in the council chamber. A junior reporter, notebook in hand, watched Linda with a mix of curiosity and sympathy. He scribbled quietly, noting the way her shoulders slumped, how she seemed smaller than before. Another journalist murmured, "That's the end of an era." As Linda turned away from the cameras, her steps slow, each one heavier than the last. The sound of children laughing drifted from the block behind the billboard, mingling with the hum of the city. Linda paused, glancing back at the mural and the families gathered beneath it. For a moment, her eyes softened, the weight of lost opportunity settling visibly on her features. She continued down the sidewalk, the news van's lights fading behind. Her legacy no longer defined by the power she once wielded, but by the change she could not prevent. The camera lingered on her retreating figure, then panned to the Carters, surrounded by neighbors and friends, their laughter and hope filling the space where exclusion once lived. The story had shifted, the glare of the news vans illuminating, not just an ending, but the beginning of something new. Linda sat behind her desk, staring out at the city through spotless glass, her own reflection ghostly in the window. The office was a shell of its former self. No laughter, no ringing phones, just the steady hum of the air conditioning and the distant drone of traffic below. The awards on her wall, once a source of pride, now seemed to mock her, their golden edges dulled by the weight of recent events. Her phone, usually alive with calls and messages, lay motionless on the desk. She scrolled through news articles on her laptop, each headline a fresh reminder of her undoing. Carters lead Oak Ridge revival, old guard faces reckoning. The faces of the families she'd once dismissed flashed in her memory, hopeful, then disappointed, then simply gone. She pressed her palm to her forehead, the chill of the glass behind her seeping into her bones. Outside her door, colleagues passed with hurried steps, their conversations quieting as they approached her office. Some glanced in with pity, others with relief, but none lingered. A junior agent paused, hand hovering over the doorknob, then thought better of it and walked away. Linda felt the sting of their absence, the isolation more biting than any public rebuke. She picked up her cold coffee, swirling the dregs in the cup. The silence was broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling, as if even the structure itself was shifting away from her. She thought of the Carters, of Simone's unwavering gaze, Andre's steady voice, Maya's camera capturing every uncomfortable truth. Regret pooled in her chest, thick and inescapable. A soft knock startled her. A staff member entered, eyes downcast, offering a brief, awkward word of sympathy before retreating. Linda managed a nod, unable to muster anything more. The door clicked shut, leaving her alone with her thoughts in the fading afternoon light. She gazed once more at her reflection in the glass, fragmented, uncertain, no longer the confident leader she once believed herself to be. Outside, the city moved on, but inside these glass walls, Linda sat with her regret, knowing that some distances could never be crossed again. Linda's world outside the office had changed as much as the one inside. She walked the familiar route home, but now the rhythm of the city felt altered, colder. At the corner, she paused as a mother gently pulled her child closer, crossing to the opposite sidewalk without a word. Linda caught the wary glance, the way the woman's shoulders stiffened as she passed. It was a small gesture, but the meaning stung. An unspoken verdict rendered by a community that once greeted her with easy smiles. At the bakery, the shopkeeper who used to chat with her about the weather now offered only a curt nod, his eyes sliding away as he handed her change. The barista at the cafe barely met her gaze, focusing instead on wiping down the counter, her movements brisk and purposeful. Linda's greetings went unanswered, her presence acknowledged only by the hush that followed her through the door. Neighbors she'd known for years seemed to vanish behind drawn curtains or found urgent reasons to busy themselves with gardening, or phone calls as she passed. Even the family dog, usually eager for a pat, stayed behind the fence, its owner watching Linda with a guarded expression. The subtle collective rejection was more painful than any confrontation. Each averted gaze, each crossed street, a silent reminder of her fall from grace. She tried to convince herself it would pass, that time would heal the rift, but every day the distance grew. The city moved around her, but she walked in a bubble of isolation, the consequences of her choices following her like a shadow. The warmth she once felt in her community had been replaced by a chill that seeped into her bones, a loneliness that no apology could thaw. At home, Linda lingered by the window, watching the world go by. She saw the Carters laughing with neighbors, children playing on sidewalks that once seemed so distant. The life she'd known was gone, replaced by a quiet reckoning she could neither outrun nor ignore. The Carters' block is transformed. Gardens bloom. Laughter fills the air. Children play in the shade of new trees. Simone tends a flower bed. Maya photographs families on their porches. The neighborhood pulses with hope and pride. Every detail a living rebuke to the neglect and exclusion that once defined it. The morning sun casts warm light over freshly painted houses, their colors vibrant against the clear blue sky. Neighbors greet each other with smiles and waves, a community reborn from years of silence and neglect. Simone's hands, dirt-streaked, but steady, plant new blooms alongside the sidewalk, her face reflecting quiet satisfaction. Maya moves through the streets, camera in hand, capturing moments of joy and resilience. Children chase each other, their laughter a sharp contrast to the broken playgrounds of the past. Andre speaks with a local shop owner, their conversation animated, filled with plans for new businesses and community events. The air is thick with the scent of fresh paint and blooming flowers, a sensory reminder of change. The Carters' presence is a beacon, their efforts a testament to the power of quiet determination. The neighborhood, once overlooked and dismissed, now stands as a symbol of hope and renewal. As the day fades, porch lights flicker on, casting a warm glow over the block. Families gather outside, sharing stories and meals, their voices blending into a harmonious chorus. Maya's camera captures the scene, a visual testament to the victory won, not with noise but with steady, unyielding resolve. The block blooms, not just in flowers but in spirit, a quiet victory that speaks louder than words. The community's heartbeat grows stronger, each step forward a testament to resilience and hope. Simone exchanges smiles with neighbors, their shared glances speaking volumes of the journey endured. Andre's voice carries softly as he discusses future plans with a local shop owner, his words filled with promise and determination. Maya's camera captures the subtle moments, the clasped hands of friends, the sparkle in a child's eye, the gentle nods of approval from elders. As twilight descends, porch lights flicker on, casting a warm glow that invites stories. Mr. Bryant stands before a small group of aspiring realtors of color in a modest classroom, his voice steady and filled with quiet authority. He shares stories of resistance and resilience, each word a seed planted in fertile ground. This isn't just about selling homes, he says, eyes scanning the eager faces. It's about changing the narrative, one family at a time. His hands move with purpose, pointing to charts and photos of neighborhoods transformed by community effort. The room is filled with nods and murmurs of agreement, the energy palpable. Mr. Bryant's presence is a beacon, a symbol of what can be achieved when barriers are broken. Outside, the city hums with life. But inside this classroom, a new mission takes root. Each handshake, each lesson, is a step toward a future where no one is steered away from their dreams. The students listen intently, their eyes bright with hope and determination. Simone visits occasionally, offering encouragement and sharing the Carters' journey. Maya's camera captures these moments, the quiet power of representation in action. The classroom walls, once bare, now display vibrant murals celebrating diversity and inclusion. Mr. Bryant's voice softens as he concludes, "Remember, every door you open is a chance to rewrite history. We're not just selling houses, we're building communities." The scene closes on a group photo, smiles wide and genuine, a testament to the seeds of change taking root and growing strong. Maya stood in the marble foyer of City Hall, her photo, essay now framed and hung along the main corridor for all to see. The images, side-by-side shots of Oak Ridge's neglected streets and Willow Heights' manicured lawns, portraits of families who had been steered away, moments of quiet resistance, drew a steady stream of visitors. Students from local schools gathered in small groups, their voices hushed as they studied each photograph. Teachers pointed out the details: a child's hand clutching a fence, a mother's determined eyes, a garden blooming where a vacant lot once stood. Maya, standing, a little apart, watched as the crowd moved from frame to frame. She listened to their questions, their whispers of recognition and surprise. "That's what our street used to look like," one girl said, tracing the cracked sidewalk in a photo. "This is real," another murmured, eyes wide. Maya felt a quiet pride settle in her chest, her work finally seen, her story finally heard. Simone and Andre stood nearby, their faces a mixture of pride and emotion. Simone wiped a tear from her cheek as she watched Maya explain the story behind a particularly powerful image: a family standing on their new porch, sunlight catching the hope in their eyes. "This is what happens when you refuse to be steered," Maya told a group of students, her voice steady but soft. "You make your own way." A city official approached, shaking Maya's hand and thanking her for her courage. "Your work is a testament to what's possible," he said. "You've given this city a mirror and a map." Maya smiled, humbled, but resolute. As the ceremony ended, Maya's camera hung by her side, but her eyes were everywhere, taking in the changed faces, the thoughtful silences, the sense that something fundamental had shifted. The framed photos would remain long after the crowd left, a permanent record that truth, once exposed, could never be erased. Maya lingered a moment longer, her reflection caught in the glass, a symbol of a generation that refused to be invisible. Her story, and those of so many others, now belonged to everyone who walked these halls. The mood inside Linda's old agency had shifted from quiet confidence to uneasy introspection. The reception area, once bustling with laughter and casual greetings, now felt subdued. Staff gathered around a conference table, their faces tense as a consultant outlined new anti-bias policies. The words accountability and transparency echoed through the room, landing with a weight that hadn't been felt before. The agency's leadership, once so certain in their routines, now listened in silence as stories of exclusion and harm were read aloud. Some employees fidgeted, avoiding eye contact, while others nodded in grim agreement. A few younger agents exchanged glances of relief, as if a long-held secret was finally being addressed. The walls, decorated with awards and old marketing photos, seemed to close in, bearing witness to a reckoning that could no longer be postponed. Outside, the ripple effect was clear. Families who had once been steered away now returned, emboldened by the Carters' example. New faces appeared at open houses, and the agency's listings began to reflect the true diversity of the city. Mr. Bryant's name came up often in conversations, his advocacy and mentorship now a model for others. The agency's website was updated, featuring testimonials from families of all backgrounds, and a public apology was posted on the front page. Simone and Andre watched these changes from afar, their satisfaction quiet but profound. Maya, ever, the observer, captured the transformation in a new series of photos. Staff in training, new agents shaking hands with clients, families celebrating in homes they had chosen for themselves. The slow machinery of change ground forward, powered by the courage of those who had refused to accept less. The agency's reckoning was not a single moment, but an ongoing process, a daily commitment to do better, to listen, to include. Old ways crumbled, replaced by a new standard that valued justice over convenience. The story of exclusion was ending, and in its place, a new narrative was taking root, one of belonging, dignity, and hope for generations to come. The mural on Main Street bursts with color, a vivid tribute to the Carters, arms linked, faces radiant with hope and determination. Above them, the bold words, "We belong everywhere," stretch across the wall, a declaration that echoes through the neighborhood and beyond. The mural's presence transforms the block, drawing people from every corner of the community. Passers-by pause, some with tears glistening, others with smiles that speak of long-awaited justice. The mural quickly becomes a gathering place, a symbol of unity and new beginnings. Children run past, their laughter weaving through the air, a soundtrack to the transformation unfolding on these once-forgotten streets. Simone stands nearby, her hands folded calmly, eyes reflecting the pride of a journey hard-fought and won. Andre chats quietly with neighbors, his voice steady, sharing plans for the future and listening to stories of the past. Maya moves through the crowd, camera in hand, capturing moments of connection and celebration. Friends embracing, elders nodding in approval, young children tracing the painted outlines of the Carters' faces with their fingers. The mural's colors seem to glow in the afternoon sun, casting a warm light on faces that once knew exclusion, but now know belonging. The scene is quiet but powerful, a testament to resilience and the slow, steady work of change. A local artist steps forward, speaking softly about the mural's meaning, how it represents not just a family, but a community reclaiming its narrative. The crowd listens, nodding, some wiping away tears. The mural is more than paint on brick. It is a promise etched in color and spirit. As the day fades, the mural stands tall, a beacon of hope and a reminder that change, though often quiet, is unstoppable when rooted in dignity and unity. The crowd's energy is palpable, voices low, but filled with reverence. Simone's gaze meets Andre's, a silent exchange of pride and promise. Maya's camera clicks softly, capturing the moment for those who will come after. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows that stretch across the mural, the colors deepening in the fading light. The community lingers, reluctant to leave a place that now feels like home. The evening air cools, carrying the soft murmur of conversations filled with plans and dreams. The mural, bathed in the gentle glow of street lamps, stands as a lasting testament to the power of unity and quiet resilience. The block party buzzed softly under strings of warm lights, the hum of conversation blending with the gentle strum of a guitar. Children darted between clusters of neighbors, their laughter a quiet melody, weaving through the evening air. Simone stood before the gathered crowd, her voice calm but filled with quiet strength. "Change doesn't roar," she said, eyes sweeping the faces around her. "It whispers in every door we open, every hand we hold, every story we share." The camera panned over the scene, families sharing food, elders nodding in approval, young couples swaying to the music. Maya's camera clicked softly, capturing moments of connection and hope. Andre moved through the crowd, exchanging smiles and quiet words, his presence a steady anchor. The neighborhood, once marked by neglect and exclusion, now thrummed with life and possibility. The mural of the Carters glowed softly in the background, a beacon of resilience and unity. The air was thick with unspoken promises and the weight of hard-won progress. A neighbor raised a glass, her voice warm and steady. "To the Carters, and to all of us," building line by line, block by block. The crowd echoed the toast, their voices low but resolute. The music swelled gently, a soundtrack to a community reborn. As the night deepened, the party continued. Quiet, joyful, and full of hope. The story of Oak Ridge was no longer one of exclusion but of belonging, whispered softly in the laughter and light. The camera lingered on Simone's face, serene and proud, before fading to black.